Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Algabot, your guide to the world of automated trading on MetaTrader 5. Today we are taking a close look at a strategy called Floor Pivot Reversion. This is a pure price level system. It uses no moving averages, no oscillators, nothing lagging at all. Instead, it trades the classic floor trader pivot points, those horizontal support and resistance lines that day traders have leaned on for decades. The style is intraday mean reversion. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how it builds its levels, how it enters, and how it manages every trade. Let us dive in. So what does this expert advisor actually do? Floor pivot reversion is built on one of the oldest ideas in technical trading, the floor trader pivot points. Every single day, before the session really gets going, the strategy looks back at the previous day's price action and pulls out three numbers: the high, the low, and the close. From those, it calculates a central pivot, which is simply the average of the three. Around that central pivot, it then builds three resistance lines above and three support lines below, giving a ladder of 7 horizontal levels in total. Here is the key thing to understand. Those levels are calculated once and then held completely static for the entire trading day. They do not move, they do not repaint, and they do not chase price around. That makes them honest reference points. When you see a level on the chart, you know it was set in stone at the start of the day. The trading style is mean reversion. The core observation is that intraday price tends to bounce around between these adjacent pivot lines rather than blasting straight through them. So instead of chasing breakouts, this strategy fades the levels. It waits for a single candle to show that a level has actually held, and then it trades the bounce back toward the middle of the ladder. Because everything is scaled by the previous day's range, the strategy adapts naturally to any symbol and any level of volatility without ever needing to know the point size. It is best suited to traders who like structured, rules-based intraday setups on liquid instruments. The textbook home for this approach is a major foreign exchange pair, such as the euro-dollar, traded on the 15-minute time frame. Remember, everything here is for educational purposes only, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Let us walk through the exact logic, step by step. The strategy acts only on fully closed candles, so it is patient and never reacts to a half-formed bar. At the start of each new day, it rebuilds the pivot ladder from yesterday's completed daily candle. It takes the high, the low, and the close, computes the central pivot as their average, and then derives the first, second, and third resistance and support lines. All 7 values are sorted into an ascending ladder, from the lowest support up to the highest resistance. Now to the entries. For a long trade, the strategy detects a bullish candle, one that closes higher than it opened, whose low dips down to a pivot line, or even pierces slightly below it, but which then closes back above that line. That tells us the level acted as support and held. The expert advisor buys the bounce. The take profit is placed at the next pivot line up, a real structural target. The stop loss is set just beyond the held level or the candle's low, whichever is lower, plus a small buffer. The short side is the mirror image. The strategy detects a bearish candle, one that closes lower than it opened, whose high spikes up to a pivot line or pierces just above it, but which then closes back below that line. Resistance held, so the EA sells the rejection. The take profit is the next pivot line down, and the stop sits just beyond the level or the candle's high, plus the buffer. Before committing to any trade, the strategy applies a reward-to-risk filter. It measures the distance to the target against the distance to the stop, and if the nearest pivot target is simply too close to justify the structural stop, the setup is rejected. There are 2 more guards. The EA holds only one position at a time, letting the structural stop and pivot target manage the exit. And it skips brand new entries whenever the current spread is wider than your chosen limit, so it avoids trading in poor conditions. Let us watch this play out on the chart. The horizontal dashed lines you see are the static pivot levels for the day. Reading from the bottom up, we have the second and first support lines in green, the central pivot in gray in the middle, and the first and second resistance lines in red above. Watch the opening candles. Price drifts steadily downward, sliding from the central pivot toward the first support line at 1.0840. On the fourth candle, price dips right down and even pierces a touch below that support line, but notice how it closes back above it. The candle is bullish and the support held. This is the long signal. The strategy buys the bounce, with its take profit set at the very next pivot line up, the central pivot. Over the next 2 candles, price climbs back up, and as it tags the central pivot at 1.0860, the take profit is reached. That is a clean pivot-to-pivot trade in the upward direction. Now the second setup. After collecting at the central pivot, price pushes higher, rising toward the first resistance line at 1.0880. On the 9th candle, price spikes up and pierces just above that resistance, but then closes back below it. The candle is bearish and resistance held. This is the short signal. The strategy sells the rejection, targeting the next pivot line down, which is once again the central pivot. Price rolls over, drifts lower, and on the final candle it returns to the central pivot at 1.0860, where the take profit is hit. Notice how the central pivot acted as a magnet for both trades. This is purely an illustration of the logic, not a prediction of real market behavior. Now let us go through the inputs you can tune. The first is zone fraction, with a default of 0.05. This controls how close a candle's extreme must come to a pivot line for it to count as a touch, measured as a fraction of yesterday's range. A larger value makes the strategy more eager to register touches and produces more signals, while a smaller value demands a tighter, cleaner tag of the level. Next is stop buffer fraction, defaulting to 0.10. This sets how far beyond the held level or the signal candle's extreme the stop loss is placed, again as a fraction of the daily range. A wider buffer gives the trade more breathing room but increases your risk per trade, while a tighter buffer keeps risk small but is more easily stopped out by noise. Then we have minimum reward to risk with a default of 1.0. This is your quality filter. The strategy compares the distance to the target against the distance to the stop, and if that ratio falls below your setting, the trade is rejected. Raise it toward 2 if you only want setups where the structural reward clearly outweighs the risk. Maximum spread points defaults to 100. If the current spread is wider than this, the EA simply skips new entries, keeping you out of poor or illiquid conditions. Tighten it on a clean major pair, or loosen it on a wider spread instrument. Lots sets your fixed position size, defaulting to 0.10. Always size this to your own account and risk tolerance. And finally, magic is the identifying number, defaulting to 8,801. That tags this strategy's trades so it can manage its own positions without interfering with anything else on your account. And that brings us to the end of our look at floor pivot reversion. We covered how it builds 7 static pivot levels from yesterday's high, low, and close, how it fades a level that holds to trade the bounce back toward the next pivot, and how it stops, targets, and filters all work together. We also walked through every parameter and how to run your own test in the strategy tester. Remember, everything in this video is for educational purposes only, and none of it is financial advice. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for more MetaTrader 5 strategy analyses, and drop a comment letting me know which strategy you would like me to cover next. You can find more tools and breakdowns over at www.algobot.live. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Trade responsibly.